Hey, good morning, everybody. It's Friday, end of the week, at least for me, April 28th. My name is Alan, and I want to welcome you to my Spiritual Growth Through Recovery podcast. Purpose of these podcasts is to grow my spirituality by following the AA program of recovery, and I do that by being honest, vulnerable, and accountable, which is why I make the videos. I'm no expert in AA or spirituality or recovery. I'm just sharing my experiences. I try to live life on life terms and do that sober. The recipe we follow here is we read the daily reading out of the AA Daily Reflections book. There's a link in the description if you'd like to follow along. And I'll share my take on what resonated with me and usually some other topic that's kind of squirreling in my head. So, all right. So today's topics is two magnificent standards and the idea of responsibility. All right. So April 28th. Two magnificent standards. All AA progress can be reckoned in terms of just two words: humility and responsibility. Our whole spiritual development can be accurately measured by our degree of adherence to these magnificent standards. As Bill sees it, page 271. To acknowledge and respect the views, accomplishments, and prerogatives of others, and to accept being wrong shows me the way of humility. To practice the principles of AA in all my affairs guides me to be responsible. Honoring these precepts gives credence to Tradition 4 and to all other traditions of fellowship. Alcoholics Anonymous has evolved a philosophy of life full of valid motivations, rich in highly relevant principles and ethical values, a view of life which can be extended beyond the confines of the alcoholic population. To honor these precepts, I need only to pray and care for my fellow man as if each one were my brother. All right? So, two standards. We talked about just two terms: humility and responsibility. We've talked about humility before. Our whole spiritual development can be measured by our adherence to these standards. Right. So, once again, humility, by my best definition, is a modest or a low view of one's importance, freedom from pride or arrogance, have a realistic sense of oneself. And for me, it's acknowledgement that I can't do everything on my own. Okay, I have limitations. Now, responsibility, and we kind of talk about that at the end, is just kind of state or fact of having a duty to deal with something or to be accountable for something, okay? And then I like the standards is an idea or thing used to measure in comparative evaluations or a level of quality, or if we look at it as a baseline behavior. So we want to hit this mark, right? So what are we trying to accomplish by all this? To me, it's spiritually directed actions and motives based on the foundational principles or standards lead to, for me, peace, serenity, and willingness to help others. All right, so that's kind of how I process that. All right, so to practice the principles of AA in all my affairs guides me to be responsible. Just do what's suggested. Just do what's suggested, not what I want, but someone's mapped this thing out and it works better than my way. So. And it talks about having evolved a philosophy of valid motivations, highly relevant principles, and ethical values. Wow, what a concept. Instead of my selfish motives and principles, frustration, anger, selfishness. My motives aren't always right. My principles are kind of off, right? So what a way better way to live. And then to honor these, to care for my fellow man as if you were my brother. Unconditional love. And I'm not looking to get anything out of it. So kind of a short reading for me. So I want to kind of dig a little bit more into the idea of responsibility, right? So what is responsibility, right? So the state or fact of having a duty to deal with something or be accountable. To do the things you're supposed to do and accept the results of your actions, right? I like to say, I got this. I got it. I'll do it, right? Responsibility is the ability to respond. We're not paralyzed by fear, plagued by anxiety, or pretending the problem doesn't exist. Right? Now, I got a quote from Jordan Peterson that I really like, and it's. So I'm gonna try to, hopefully I can read this well. To stand up straight with your shoulders back is to accept the terrible responsibility of life. With your eyes wide open, it means deciding to voluntarily transform the chaos of potential into realities of habitual order. It means adapting the burden of self-conscious vulnerability and accepting the end of the unconscious paradise of childhood. It means willingly undertaking the sacrifices necessary to generate a productive and meaningful reality. Okay? A lot of that didn't make sense to me either. So, but willing to sacrifice. I may not want to do it, but you know what? I'm going to do it. And by doing those things, by doing things that, accepting the responsibility, choosing to do things, that I got this, I'm going to be responsible for it. To me, it helps develop meaning and purpose. Because if I'm going to do it, then there's got to be a reason why I'm doing it. And choosing to follow through on it, that's an objective, that's a goal. And so to me, that means meaning. So why is responsibility important? Life has more meaning with responsibility. The more responsibility, the more meaningful experience, right? So when I think of meaning, some significant quality. So this action has a quality to it, something I want out of it. It's valuable there. Something's intended purpose. It's purpose, significance, or definition. So if I do something that has meaning, it's not worthless. There's value in it for me, right? So now it's also, I think responsibility is also important because we can maximize our growth and potential by taking on more responsibility. If we do things that make us uncomfortable and we take ownership of those things, we will become more comfortable and we'll kind of elevate our skill level. We'll become more confident. We can embrace failure more. I mean, there's almost nothing wrong with doing that. There's nothing but growth opportunities there. And taking responsibility creates long-term resilience in the sense of purpose. Right? Why don't we take responsibility? All right? We can be lazy, fear of failure or low self-worth, selfishness and entitlement, which applies to me. Times we feel overwhelmed by the scale of the problem or situation or past traumas. Right? There's a lot of kinds of reasons. Ultimately, those reasons we don't want those to hold us up. We want to work through those, so we take those steps, right? Doing a certain chore, helping out with someone, we're a community and all these things need to be done. So I'm going to take a piece of that and I'm going to make sure that gets done, for the betterment of the whole. So, and I like looking up what are the consequences of being irresponsible, right? Like an addiction, sidestepping responsibility may feel good in the short term, but leads to exponentially worse pain and suffering in the long term. It never pays off. There's always some emotional baggage that comes with it. I think it can damage relationships, right? It can cause distrust, added stress. Like the more we act irresponsibly, it becomes a habit. It's harder to get back on track. Kind of like whatever we feed grows. If we feed the laziness and irresponsibility, that becomes more influential on us, and that'll dictate our actions. I think we can adopt other unhealthy behaviors like lying and engaging in addictive behaviors to numb the shame. So I know when I'm being irresponsible, and I don't like that, so I'm going to shut that off so I don't have to feel that. And that can lead to some other unhealthy behaviors. Being irresponsible can make us feel bad about ourselves when we aren't living up to our potential. And that is exactly how I feel about my recovery. I know I can do better, and I don't. And then I start to feel really bad about myself. And then I say, screw it. And I shut down, and I numb, and I just run out of fear. So, I hope some of that was helpful. It was helpful for me putting it together. So, I just want to encourage you to see what's your foundational morals and your standards. What do you live by? What guides you? And are you happy with what guides you? I think how we act when things don't go our way says a lot about where our morals and our principles are. So I want to encourage you to, think about that. And if you need to make any changes, do that. I hope you have a great weekend. I know I intend to. It's going to be a nice chill weekend, no travel. I'll be back on Monday. For next week, I want to talk about core values. So Monday will be about what are core values, and then the next 4 days will be about my 4 core values that I chose. And how am I doing with those? Interesting to see. So anyway, hope you have a great weekend. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you Monday. Peace out.